Welcome everyone to Engaging the Mind, where we seek to avoid no subject, fear no man, and seek no glory. The ultimate purpose of engaging the mind is obviously to transform the heart. Now, in this episode of Engaging the Mind, I want to do a fair comparison between the structure of a standard pro-life bill and the structure of a standard abolition bill. Now, the booklet that I want to use is entitled Are You an Abolitionist? Equal Protection for All Humans. And this was published by Free the States. And they've got a great little diagram on the inside. And so I just want to walk you through that diagram and talk with you about the structure of a standard pro-life bill and how that contrasts with the structure of a standard abolition bill. Well, let's talk about a standard pro-life bill to begin with. Well, basically at the heart of it, a pro-life bill will say, we want to save babies and women from abortion, and we want to do this by reducing abortion numbers. All right? So let's talk about that. Now, let's talk about how a pro-life bill or how pro-lifers will say, or a pro-life bill will say, we want to save babies. Now, how do they do that? Well, they will seek what is known as incrementalism. They'll take an incremental approach. In other words, they believe that in order for abortion, in order to save babies, it's got to be done through regulation or through incremental steps. Oftentimes, pro-lifers will use the analogy of a football field. We've got to, you don't win a game by throwing Hail Marys. You've got to kick the ball down the field one yard at a time. And so that's the idea of the incremental approach. And so a standard pro-life bill uses the means of incrementalism. And a standard pro-life bill, in order to save babies, is what they say, allows exceptions. For example, abortion is illegal except if the mother's health is at risk. There's oftentimes they'll make rape exceptions. Abortion is a wrong. A pro-lifer will say except in the case of rape or incest or whatever it may be. And so they allow exceptions. And I'm going to try to do this fairly, okay? And so, so they talk about wanting to save babies, and so they seek this through incremental approach, and they also allow exceptions. And so that makes you kind of think, well, if you allow the exceptions, don't you really just open the door wide open for abortion? We'll get to that here in a moment. Again, not only does a standard pro-life bill seek to save babies, they say, but they also want to protect women from abortion. And so pro-life laws are structured in a way to help a woman make better choices. Rather than killing her baby, let's help her to make a better choice. And that is to keep her baby. And so you have such laws like parental consent, waiting periods, ultrasound laws, educational laws, and informed reversal pill. They got to be informed about that, about about a reversal pill that will stop the abortion. And furthermore, a standard pro-life bill, they want to reduce the abortion numbers. And so a pro-life bill is not seeking to abolish abortion or end abortion. A pro-life bill is seeking to reduce abortion numbers. And so they do this by regulating abortion. For example, the ages of those who can have abortions, the stages of the baby in the womb, at what stage can it be aborted. They also regulate methods of abortion, the type of utensils that are used, if you will. And they also regulate abortion by reasons given for an abortion. And so, those are some of the ways that a standard pro-life bill seeks to regulate abortion. They also seek to regulate the abortion industry by saying who can care for or who can perform abortions when abortions must be performed, how abortions are to be performed, and what must be done before an abortion, and where abortions may be performed. Okay? And so these are the different things. So at the heart of it, a standard pro-life bill seeks to save babies through incrementalism, through incremental steps over a long period of time. So for 48 years now. And through those incremental steps, over 60 million babies have been aborted. Why? Because a standard pro-life bill allows exceptions. And so that's the reason that babies are still being murdered under pro-life legislation. A pro-life bill, as I said before, wants to help the mother make a better choice. And there's an argument that says, should a woman even have a choice? You know, why do we tell women they have choices to either murder their babies or not? And pro-life legislation feeds that idea that women should have a choice, but we want to help them make a better choice. And they do that through pro-life legislation. Again, a standard, as I told you, they want to regulate abortion. Not abolish it, but regulate it. Again, through standard pro-life legislation. And also through standard pro-life bills, they want to regulate the abortion industry, and they'll even pass bills that talk about defunding the abortion industry. Now, a standard pro-life bill will seek to do this. It will seek to punish abortionists who violate the regulations. Okay, if any abortionist violates these regulations, then a pro-life bill will say that person should be punished. A standard pro-life bill will even seek to shut down abortion clinics who violate these regulations. But a pro-life bill will never, they'll seek to criminalize the doctor, they'll seek to criminalize the clinics, but they will never criminalize the woman. Never. They believe that a woman who has an abortion is an innocent victim. Well, I would say they've never been to an abortion mill if they believe that. Now, for a standard pro-life bill works within the parameters of Roe v. Wade and Casey versus Planned Parenthood. And so they function within the parameters of these laws that were passed by the Supreme Court. Now, they will tell you that they believe that Roe is unjust, but the courts have ruled on it. And therefore, since the courts have ruled on it, we can't end abortion because the Supreme Court says it's okay. They also believe that abolition is unconstitutional, which we'll talk more about that in a moment. A standard pro-life bill says no nullification. You know, we cannot nullify. We cannot oppose the Supreme Court. And they also say no to state sovereignty. The state must bow down to the federal government. And this is the standard pro-life ideology, that we must bow down to the Supreme Court. And therefore, the end result is compliance. We must comply as a state to the Supreme Court's decisions like Roe v. Wade and Casey versus Planned Parenthood. And so that is the standard structure of a pro-life bill. Incremental, regulate abortion, no nullification, no state sovereignty. Roe v. Wade is king. Casey versus Planned Parenthood. We must comply to these iniquitous decrees that have been passed down to us by the Supreme Court. And we are bound to that. And so all we can do now is keep kicking the ball down the court, regulating abortion. But what they don't realize is that even while all that is happening, babies are still being killed. All right. Or perhaps they do realize that and they just don't care. And so let's talk about the standard structure of an abolition bill. Okay, the standard structure of an abolition bill. So an abolition bill seeks total and immediate abolition of abortion as murder. Okay, No exceptions. No exceptions. Abortion's murder, period. No exceptions. No incrementalism. It must stop now. And equal justice under the law. Equal justice for preborn babies under the law. Okay? No compromise. And justice delayed is justice denied. And so, now think about this. No exceptions, no incrementalism, prohibition, equal justice under law, and criminalization. Anyone who participates in an abortion, whether it's the doctor, nurse, whoever, the mother, they should be criminalized. Why? Because abortion is murder. An abolition bill challenges the essential holding of Roe v. Wade. Abolition bills say Roe is unjust, Roe is unconstitutional. Pro-lifers say Roe is unjust, but the courts have ruled on it. But what's unconstitutional is the immediate abolition of abortion. That's what pro-lifers say. That's what pro-life legislation believes. Where abolition bills say, no, Roe is unjust, Roe is unconstitutional, and abolition is biblical. An abolition bill says yes to nullification. We must nullify Roe v. Wade by standing upon state sovereignty. Okay? We must ignore Roe and uphold and defend the Constitution. That just as born babies have a right to life, that's constitutional, so do preborn babies. That's constitutional. So the end result of abolition is interposition. Now, what does that mean? Well, let me pull it up for you here. The act of interposing, the action of a state whereby its sovereignty is placed between its citizens and the federal government. We have to stand and say that we are a union of states, and each state is sovereign. The state is sovereign. Therefore, we have a right to say no to the Supreme Court. Nullification is constitutional. Now, we've already nullified in the state of Oklahoma as it relates to marijuana. The federal government says marijuana is illegal. But what did our state say? Well, it's not in our state. So we legalized marijuana in the state of Oklahoma, even though the federal government says it's illegal. So we nullified. We exercised our state sovereignty. Now, follow that logic as it relates to abortion. The federal government says abortion is legal. Why can't we practice nullification again, just like we did with marijuana, exert our state sovereignty and say abortion's not legal in the state of Oklahoma? We don't care what the federal government says. It's not going to be legal here. So the idea that nullification is unconstitutional is an excuse. It's a coward's excuse. Nullification is constitutional. Abolition is biblical. And it's the only way abortion is going to come to an end in the state of Oklahoma. And hopefully when Oklahoma does this, and I believe we will, other states will get on board. I'd love to be able to, I have a whole box full of these books. And I probably didn't do a good enough job in this podcast explaining to you the differences. And so if you will, do we have our email up yet?
We have the same.
Okay, so my producer here says that our my Engaging the Mind email will be up soon, and so we'll publicize that. If you would like a copy of one of these books, contact us here at Engaging the Mind. You can look for that new email address, email us, and we'll make sure that we send you one. If you're a member of the church, come by the office. I have a whole box full of them. But I want to get as many people as I can. I want to get this booklet in your hand. But let me just rehash, and then we'll be done. Basically, let's wrap it up. A pro-life bill seeks to save babies through incrementalism. Just kicking the ball down the field, hoping that we save some babies. And the whole time they're making allowances for why women can have an abortion. That's what pro-life legislation does. That's a standard pro-life bill. What's the heart behind pro-life legislation? Well, we want to help women make better choices. And so let's regulate abortion. Let's tell them when they can have an abortion. Let's tell them when they can't have an abortion. Let's tell them what methods they have to use. Let's tell them what stages the baby has to be at in the womb before they can have an abortion. And if any doctor or any clinic goes against those regulations, then we will criminalize the doctor in the clinic, but we'll never criminalize the woman. And again, standard pro-life legislation works within the parameters of Roe v. Wade. No nullification. And they believe that we cannot assert our state sovereignty, even though we've done it with marijuana. And that compliance to the Supreme Court is the only way forward. Where an abolition bill says no exceptions, abortion's murder. No incrementalism, because it doesn't work. We've been doing that for 48 years. 60 million babies have died. It doesn't work. No incrementalism. Prohibition, in other words, criminalization. Anybody that does an abortion will be criminalized. Why? Because we believe in equal justice under the law, not just for born babies, but also for preborn babies. Therefore, we must challenge Roe v. Wade. Why? Because it's an unjust, it's an iniquitous decree. It's unconstitutional. Therefore, we must assert our state sovereignty by nullifying, just like we did with marijuana, and interpose for our people against the federal government, against the Supreme Court, which is biblical. To say that abortion is murder and it must stop now, or to say that abortion is bad and we've got to regulate it. I think you know the answer. Join me in this abolition movement. Until we meet again, serve the King.